Okay, so a simple, practical, no woo-woo guide to what the Buddha thought, part two. So even though the part one was 40 minutes, a lot of people actually looked at it and gave me a lot of feedback. So thanks for doing that. I really like the conversations that we have after I share this stuff because that helps me elevate some of these ideas from the subconscious and give me a little bit of control. But anyways, it was fun. Okay, so you remember the theme of this thing, which is that the Buddha is trying to say that I'm going to ask you to see something clearly, and once you do see something clearly, uh, it's going to help you be liberated. So, we already covered 2 points, and the third one is you do not control your body, your possessions, the world, or anything in it. So this one is fairly easy to understand as compared to the first and the second one. And with a little bit of thought, you just sort of say that, yeah, this is true. In fact, this, I would argue, is the basis of most of the world's religions. So let's see what this means. So you do not control your body. This is simple. You cannot tell your body, hey, can you please stop aging? Can you please shrink those tumors? Can you lose that fat? Can you please not contract a stomach infection? You don't control any of these things, right? uh, you might protest and say that no, I do have control. I want to lift my hand, and then I lift my hand. So it's a very strange type of control. It's the type of control that you have over your car. You turn your car steering wheels right and the car goes right, and in that sense you can take your car wherever you want. But in another sense, the car's battery might die on you, a gasket might start leaking, the underbody might get hit by a stone, and the car will malfunction and glitch for a wide variety of reasons. So do you have absolute control over your car? No. Do you have some control over the car? Yes. uh, you control the car, as in you can do whatever you want to the car, but the car also has some control over you, because you know uh, the car can do all sorts of interesting things where it breaks down in xyz way, and if it does do that, then it gets your attention. So the body is that type of control. You don't control your body in any serious way, basically. Okay, you do not control your possessions. So this one, at least on the face of it, sounds like a paradox. Your possessions, surely I control my possessions. But I want you to think of it in a slightly different way. Your possessions are more like what the universe is letting you hold in this moment, right? So, for example, we just witnessed two earthquakes in Turkey, which took away the houses of a lot of people, right? So, your house can go away in an earthquake. You have all this money stashed away in a bank account, and if there is a global pandemic, you will have to pour all of it into the saving of your loved one, right? So your money, your house is just what the universe is letting you hold in this moment, right? You have a car. Your car is your car. You control your car, but do you really control your car? There could be a storm in the next monsoon. Your car is parked under a massive gulmohar tree. The wind is blowing a little bit too forcefully on that day. Branch falls, smashes into the roof of the car, and your car is no longer your car, right? It's some damaged form of your car. I've actually seen a car get horribly screwed because of something like this. So to say you control your possessions is a little bit of a fallacy. You sort of control it, but it's more like the universe is letting you hold on to your positions at this moment. So with this two parts, with this part, like you don't control your body and you don't control your possessions, it should be fairly easy to see that if you don't even control your body and your possessions, then you obviously don't control the world or anything in it, right? So just to talk about the original Buddha thing, he didn't spend a lot of time, as far as I know, talking about how little control you have on your possessions or the world or anything in it, because I would say that this is common knowledge from all the existing religions. Like all these religions are based on this idea of your lack of control, and so on and so forth. We'll talk about little all of this earlier. He did explicitly talk about your body and your lack of control over your body in this discourse of not self. But I'm just being a little bit technically correct because I don't want to send the wrong message. I've completed those ideas a little bit and polished them off for clarity. Okay, so at this point you're saying, okay, fine, I don't control anything. How the heck does this help? It's just depressing. Okay, so what this does for you is that you drop a lot of anger, frustration, and negative emotions as you interact with the universe, because the universe is not obligated to you in any way. And if you do believe you control these things, then you might find yourself wagging your finger at the universe saying, this should have not happened. And basically, what happens, the liberation by seeing this is by understanding that you have to, you can drop all the shoulds. There is no should. This should not happen. That should have not happened. This person should have not behaved this way. All the shoulds can become irrational once you accept that you don't actually have any control over the universe. It does whatever the heck it feels like doing. Now, to sort of fully understand this, you can imagine the opposite of this, right? If a person feels that they are in control, right, then they're going to get very angry, frustrated. They're going to feel cheated when things don't go the way they should go, right? So imagine this person, he runs every day and goes to the gym and is in prime physical shape, and they eat right and they don't smoke and blah blah blah. And then one day they discover that they have a tumor, right? This can happen, this does happen, right? And this person is going to be like, what the heck, I spent so many hours of my life being in perfect physical shape, and this happens now. This energy, time and effort spent in trying to control the universe feels futile, and it fills you with anger because of all this injustice that the universe has cast upon you, right? By pre-accepting that you don't have control, you don't go through that anguish. Okay, imagine another person, some guy in Turkey, for example, who works hard, saves money, finally buys a small condo with, I don't know, with a small building with 3-4 flats, rents them all out, says, I'm going to live off my rent, my life will be set. Earthquake hits, everything breaks down, right? You don't control the universe. So stuff like this can happen. So they don't have to be so dramatic. More daily examples are, why the heck is this road blocked? You have this perception, and I'm gonna go this way because I'm late for this meeting, so I'm gonna go this way. That road is never blocked, and then that road is blocked because some stupid politician had to come today, right? So think about all the anger and frustration that you're feeling because you constantly believe that you're in control of something that you are not in control of, right? Okay, you plan a party, you call 20 people to your home, and then you're fully confident that your maid is going to do this and you do this and everything will go well. But then the maid says, oh, my mom's not well, so I have to go to my village. Now you've invited 20 people and you're frustrated and angry and overwhelmed, and you're like, this is not right, this should not be how it happens, right? All these shoulds drop away if you accept your lack of control. So let me summarize. You don't control the world or anything in it. You don't control your body, the world, the universe, anything. If you think you do, you will get slapped by the universe from time to time, where the universe shows you who's boss and says, I don't care what you think should happen, dude. You'll get slapped by the universe and you'll be angry and disappointed and filled with anguish. On the other hand, if you internalize your lack of control and see clearly how little control you have, you will see that the chaos is going to happen. It's coming for sure. Something is going to go wrong, and that's fine. You accept it. You preempt it. And that's why you're not filled with negative emotions when it happens. You're in fact like, oh yeah. I mean, obviously something's going to go wrong. I mean, there's no assumption that everything will go perfectly and it should go a particular way, right? So that's this whole thing. But there's another benefit. Okay, as soon as you start getting into this mindset and saying that, oh yeah, you know what, I am a puny creature, I have so little control, you maybe keep your mind ready to accept the chaos that is going to come. And then you find out that, wait, actually a lot of stuff goes well. So little control I have, yet I'm so lucky that so much of the stuff that I want should happen actually happens, right? And this fills you with gratefulness, with gratitude, okay? And you feel, I personally feel lucky to be born at this time in this family, to learn this set of things, and a thousand other things, right? You're filled with gratitude because you have so little control and yet so much is going well. So in my life personally, like a lot of it has gone well. The small fraction of it has gone badly, but I'm still incredibly lucky. So, okay, with that, we're going to go a little bit deeper in this and talk about how the subconscious is related to this uncertainty on this lack of control. It'll become a little bit clear why I'm choosing to go in this path a little bit later. So, the mind and its relationship to uncertainty. Now, you don't have any real control. Once you see that, that's scary. It's scary because uncertainty means that you don't know how the future is going to play out, and you fill that gap, how is it going to play out, with something negative, like something bad's going to happen. This fills you with a feeling of anxiety, and anxiety is painful, and anxiety is tiring. Let me tell you what I mean by anxiety is tiring, right? Anxiety is this feeling of dread about the future. And it's tiring because to cope with anxiety, one is extremely vigilant, extremely, extremely hyper aware, and trying to do things to collapse the anxiety and control the future. So, this is somewhere, all of this is our design. Now, why is it our design? To understand that, you can sort of imagine a guy, you walking down a forest alone, right? Like a trees paths alone, right? You hear like this rustling in the leaves on in some direction, and let's say you can respond to this in one of three ways. One way is to say, wait, rustling in the leaves, is that a snake? Right? So this is rustling in the leaves, unknown, uncertainty, but you fill that uncertainty with a negative prediction of the future. Maybe that's a snake, right? Or you say, I don't care, must be something, yeah, hote rehta hai forest mein, like could be anything. Or you say, it must be a rabbit and I want to go and see what the rabbit is. So, right, so there's uncertainty. You have a neutral response, a negative response, and a positive response. Now, to be filled with a negative response is actually protective, because maybe it is a snake and maybe you go near that and the snake bites you and you die, right? So your body fills you with a negative response so that you're hyper vigilant. You're like, wait, what is that? I need to look at that. Is that a snake? Like, you're careful, you're treading slowly. But of course, this snake example does not happen throughout your life. What actually happens is that say some uncertainty in the future, you're filling it with a negative this thing, and you start doing some work and say, okay, I'm going to try to control the future. And then you're hyper vigilant and your stress levels are high. And this is a cycle that we all go through, right? Because it's part of our design to believe the negative outcome. Because the negative guy survives that situation, and the positive guy walks towards the snake thinking it's a rabbit and he wants to see the rabbit and then gets bitten, and the neutral guy is not aware about what's going on in his environment, so the snake can sneak up to him and kill him. So so the negative guy survives, and that is why it's part of our design, right? But as I said, this whole process is extremely tiring and stressful, right? So how do you cope with anxiety? Now, a tool that has developed in cultures around the world, according to me, is religion. And I think, in my view, religion is one of the big solutions to this anxiety and uncertainty and lack of control over the world problem, right? All religions are based on this in some way, because the antidote to anxiety is faith, right? What I mean by that is that, a religious person has faith in God. Like, for example, a Muslim person, the act of praying namaz, if you see what is happening throughout the namaz, the gestures, a gesture that keeps happening is the gesture of sajda, where the person is sort of, submitting to God. If you don't know what sajda is, then look it up. But that's not only true for the Islamic faith. Like you look at, like I was listening to this song or this bhajan, I don't know what to call it, from this movie Agnipath called Deva Shri Ganesha, where the guy talks over and over again about how much faith he has in Ganesha looking after him. Right? He needs to have this faith because he's trying to deal with anxiety, and anxiety is painful, and you're a puny creature in an uncertain world, right? And you have very little control. So that is the prime comfort that religion provides, which is faith. Faith with curbs anxiety, and that's why faith is such a big theme in these religions, in all religions, right? You might not necessarily have faith in a god looking after you. You might also have faith in yourself or a group. You like, हम कर लेंगे, हम सब कर लेंगे यार, हमने बहुत सारी चीजें करी है. Or you might have faith in yourself, like I'll figure it out, I've dealt with all these complicated situations, ये तो क्या है, मैं कर लूंगा, right? But some sort of faith is required to cope with uncertainty, right? And unfortunately, personally for me, I lack all these forms of faith. For some reason, I mean, I don't believe that God is looking out for me, and that is why I don't have that faith, and that is why I don't have that ability to cope with that anxiety through that particular faith. And for some strange reason, which I don't fully understand even now, I have very little faith in myself, despite no matter what I have accomplished in life, right? So none of these things work for me. There is a more sophisticated form of faith that gamblers use, and this is the model of faith that I use. Basically, a gambler, you can think of a gambler as a person, whether it's a poker player or a stock market investor or whatever, as a person who walks towards uncertainty, when the rest of us are sort of like saying, oh, we really don't like uncertainty, but this guy walks towards uncertainty. This person is constantly taking bets, and their strategy to deal with all this uncertainty is that they try to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a bet and I'm going to limit the loss. Like imagine investing in the stock market and saying, okay, the worst case scenario, I'm going to lose $500. In the best case scenario, I'm going to make 10,000 bucks, right? If I get this right, I make 10,000. If I lose only 500, right? And then the person has faith that any particular bet can go wrong. It's okay. Ye wrong gaya, to wrong gaya. But my system is such that in the worst case scenario, I'll lose a very small amount. Na? So if I keep making bets, overall, I'll keep moving up. I'll keep winning, right? My bank balance will keep improving. That's how a gambler has faith. It's a more sophisticated form of faith. A real life example is that you're starting a new business, and if you say that I'm going to put 75% of your savings into this new venture, then you are such that, okay, you can't recover from it when it goes wrong, right? So you better have faith in, God or yourself or something, such that you can take that risk. But you can put 10% of your savings in this venture and say, okay, let me see what happens. At the back of mind, that, okay, in the worst case scenario, I'll lose 10% and then I have another chance. I have another shot, and eventually I'll find something and I'll double down on that. Or maybe there's a supplier. The supplier is going to give a really good rate, but he's unreliable. So you say, okay, there's also a backup supplier. So in the worst case scenario, that backup supplier is going to come and so on and so forth. So, this is a more sophisticated form of faith, which I try to use. Anyways, so there's a pesky problem in all of this, that there is a limited bankroll. So like, if this faith was solid and it just worked, then everybody would be gamblers. But we are not all gamblers because we have limited bankrolls. What that means is that if I say, okay, I'm going to put only 10% of my savings in this new venture, and then I lose 10, and then I lose 10, and I lose 10, and I lose 10 times, I'm wiped out, right? So you have to still have some faith, saying that अरे कुछ तो चल ही जाएगा यार, खुदा मुझे बचा ही लेगा, या whatever the case may be, right? Some faith is still required. So anyways, I'm using this whole example of uncertainty because I want you to see something clearly, which is what I've called 2A, which is a sub point of you don't control your subconscious. In reality, our subconsciouses are filled with a whole bunch of things like this, right? And real liberation is to free yourself from all of these biases that your subconscious has. So Here's thing to see clearly. Part 2A, our subconscious, which we don't control, is biased towards catastrophe. So there are many more biases that you probably need to investigate, but we're going to investigate one together because it's a very common bias. You might have some other biases that are specific to you and based on your upbringing and environment and so on and so forth. So as I was talking about, basically, uncertainty, anxiety is a negative prediction about the future. Uncertainty is just that it's unknown, and all of us have a, like, generally speaking, human beings have a bias towards filling that uncertainty with something negative because it is protective, right? Like the snake example. Um so but everybody's different, and everybody has, you can think of an uncertainty tolerance spectrum, right? Like there's one person who's at one extreme of the spectrum, who they call their friend, the friend doesn't pick up, and they say, oh shit, they're angry with me, right? There's uncertainty, they fill it with extreme negativity, and they just can't handle that uncertainty, and they're creating all this anxiety and stress within themselves. On the other end of the spectrum, maybe is a person who just books a one-way ticket to somewhere and says, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't know, man, he's Pathan or something. But anyways, so I am definitely much closer to that first guy who has very poor uncertainty tolerance. So I'm learning to cope with this. And this 2A example that I'm talking about, right, is an example of how mindfulness helps you cope with your subconscious, or play with your subconscious, or mold your subconscious, or deal with all of these things that you don't control in your subconscious. Because I was watching this video by a psychiatrist, okay, who helps patients who deal with very poor tolerance for uncertainty, okay, like those guys who call their friend and all that. And he was saying, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to do some uncertainty journaling. Like, you start writing it out. Like, I believed that my friend hated me because he didn't pick up my phone call, and then in reality he was just, like, in the bathroom or something like that, right? So notice all of this that your mind is doing, how your mind is filling uncertainty with a negative prediction about the future. And Buddha would tell you the same thing. Buddha would tell you to sit down and listen to your subconscious and try to understand what's going on. Inspect it curiously, not getting sucked into it. Getting sucked into it is to believe that your friend hates you because they didn't pick up the phone call. But to observe it and say that, oh, it pops strange things out, so I'm going to observe it and thus free yourself from it, is the process of mindfulness. Okay. So anxiety is a negative prediction about the future, and as I have started this uncertainty journaling, and I'm writing down things that I predict about the future, and I'm going like, oh yeah, 9 out of 10 times actually the thing is not as bad as I think it is, because I have that very strong bias. So now what's happening is that when I make a negative prediction about the future, my subconscious still does what it does. It goes like, everything's gonna go to hell, dude. And in response, I sort of go like, yeah, you keep saying stuff like that, dude. Like, I don't believe you anymore. So that is how you aid your subconscious by mindfulness. You listen to it and you observe it, and that process helps you to liberate yourself from it. Okay, so we are at the last section of this whole journey, and I'm going to share with you the 80% liberation hack. When we started this journey, I told you about the monk who sets himself on fire. That guy is like 100% liberated, sort of. We have to assume so, and let's assume Buddha has reached 100% Buddhist enlightenment. I don't claim to help you reach there. I'm only claiming that you can, with this little technique that I've developed, I am feeling like I'm at 80% liberation. So that's what this last section is about. If you want to come closer and closer to that 100%, what you really need to do is you'll need to investigate your subconscious and all the stuff that pops out of it, get curious about it, understand where it came from, and let go of it. So, like, to me, that's the process. And Buddha would tell you mindfulness meditation. I would say that if that's not your thing, you could also try to understand your psychology by studying, by reading the what other people are talking about human psychology. So like I read a lot of books, and that helps me see myself more clearly. Okay, so coming to that 80% hack, you and me are like Gajni. Okay, we keep forgetting. So you might have nodded along as you saw this whole presentation and said, yeah, 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 I agree. But that's okay. That's just the start. The real problem is that we keep forgetting. So Gajni is, there was this movie where Amir Khan was a guy who would keep forgetting things. So that's why he would walk around shirtless and tattoo things that are important to him on his body. This was an excuse for him to walk around shirtless. But anyways, it's based on another Hollywood movie called Memento. That's not the point. The point is, like Gajini keeps forgetting, you and me keep forgetting. And because we keep forgetting, we keep getting sucked back and becoming unliberated, right? So we need to remind ourselves of all of these ideas again and again and again. So what I did was I wrote it all down. I put it on the one thing that I look at all the time. So what I did is I turned it into a poem, made it a mobile phone wallpaper, and I see it all the time. Like it's the first thing I see when I open my phone. And then I stole the idea from Islam about namaz. So namaz, namaz is to be prayed 5 times a day, and as you do namaz, as you pray namaz, you're supposed to reflect on, on many different things. I can't claim to know exactly what you're supposed to reflect on, but at least that's what the practice hopefully does. Like as I told you about sajda, and so on and so forth. You accept that you're puny, and then you say that I ask God, who is almighty and all powerful, to look over me, right? So I stole that idea of namaz from Islam, and but you cannot read through this thing that I'm going to show you next, just like a machine. You have to reflect on each line, and I'll try to do that a little bit ahead. And the question is, does this technique work? And like if you were looking to buy a product on Amazon, you would probably look at the reviews. If you need a review about whether this technique works and how good or how bad it is, maybe you talk to my wife. Like if you're seriously considering this, talk to my wife, because you can ask her how I am interacting with the world. When do I get sucked into funny states of mind? How I interact with her? Am I really kind and nice to her? So on and so forth all the time. Blah blah blah. So talk to my wife if you want to get a review of this technique. Okay, so this is the wallpaper, or this is the poem that I wrote, and I'm going to read through each paragraph, and it's going to correspond to the things that we have already talked about, and I'll try to take you through how that reflection thing goes, right? So, to be satisfied, I am not designed. Wanting will not stop. It's always a grind, despite how beautiful a destination I find. So, till here, I basically am talking about how my mind is not designed to be satisfied. So, I ask myself, hey, okay, so coach, what do you want today? So, one thing I want today is to make this video. Is this the last thing that I want? No, it's life is a marathon, right? It's not a sprint race. So, if I think it's a sprint race, like I want this, and then, if Rasida is asking me to do something, then that would irritate me. And that's where the last line comes in. So to the obstacles in the way, I will be kind, right? I'll be like, this is not the last thing I want. I'll want something else after this. So, it'll keep going on. So relax. Don't be stressed out that you're not getting this particular thing and so on and so forth, right? So, uh, notice that the last line is to be kind. I'll speak a little bit more about that after we do the second and third paragraph. So the next paragraph is, I do not control my subconscious mind. It can overpower me. Reason will be declined. It is built with the inputs of the universe combined. So till there, again, I'm basically saying that I don't control my subconscious mind. I am aware of this, and that is why I'm curious of this. Repeating this and staying aware of this helps me be curious of my subconscious mind, and I notice weird things popping up, and I go like, wow, that was a weird thing. What the heck was that? Where did that come from? Right? For example, and see the last line, and everyone else is like me, so I will be kind. Right? Again, I'll take an example like I am doing something, and Rashida gives me a very strong reaction. Right? And previously, to her strong reaction, I would respond with another strong reaction. But now I don't respond, and then I take some time to reflect on why she gave me that strong reaction, and then some days I might go like, oh, actually she has a neck pain. And remember, coach, the time when you were really hungry, and that is why your mental state was a little bit compromised and you were getting a little bit too irritated with small things also happening. Remember how hard it is to stay in prime mental condition and having full control over your subconscious and your actions when you are hurting in some way. So she's hurting today, man. And last night, she was very anxious about some project, so she didn't sleep well. All of this is coming together to create that reaction. So be kind. Don't. She's already hurting. You can't add more hurt to that, right? So that's what that last line is. That everybody else is like me, so I will be kind. This also applies to people who have strange reactions to things, this, that, so on and so forth. Very different upbringings, and that is why very different views of the world, and so on and so forth. Okay. I do not control my body or its working. On lucky days, I should be gratefully smirking. Parts can glitch, their presence alerting. Okay, so till here, it's talking about my lack of control over my body. Now, I am incredibly lucky that I have a, a body that sort of works 9 out of 10 days, or let's say 9.5 out of 10 days, without glitching in any way. But I do have some things that go wrong from time to time. Like, for example, I have some weird skin condition because of which my head gets a little flaky and this and that and so on and so forth. So I know that the discomfort that causes me and how it is out of my control. So when my parents, for example, are suffering from leg pain, or Rashida is suffering from neck pain, or somebody else is suffering from something, I am kinder to them. Now, the last video that I posted, right, I shared it with one of my friends. I mean, I shared it with a lot of people. One of my friends who actually goes for a lot of these Vipassana retreats and, studies Buddhist philosophy, responded to me, and he told me the story where he said that, Buddha talks a lot about metta, loving kindness meditation. Okay, and I alluded to that in the last thing, right? And there's a story about one of the disciples of Buddha saying, "Why do you keep talking about this loving kindness meditation? Like half the time you keep talking about this. Like it just doesn't seem so important as compared to the rest of the stuff you talk about." So he says that's the most important thing. Everything else is to get you to the point where you feel like you can be kinder to somebody else, not because somebody's telling you to do it. It's because you're in touch with your subconscious. You realize how little control you of your subconscious you have, how little control of your body you have, such that when you see other people also suffering from the lack of control, you're kinder to them, right? Loving kindness is the destination. You become a nicer person by fully internalizing these ideas. That's what he was trying to say. So that's why you see the first three paragraphs, all of them end that way. So to the obstacles in the way, I will be kind, and everybody else is like me, so I will be kind. So I must be kind to others who are hurting. Okay. So, that's the destination. That's the reason why you become a nicer person also by internalizing these ideas and being liberated. Okay. I do not control the world or anything in it. So chaos will come, I must accept and admit. And to the will of the universe, I must submit. So, this is just what we talked about, right? You have so little control. And thinking that you do puts you in this position where you are constantly disappointed when the universe slaps you around. So on the other hand, reminding yourself how little control you have, you're just pleasantly surprised that so much goes well. And that's what that last line is. Yet so much goes well, and I am grateful for it. So you reflect on the things that you expect will go a particular way, right? Like as I said, like you're planning to go somewhere, and okay, so we had this event at our place, and I said, oh man, a bad thing that could happen is the caterer will just say, oh, I totally slipped my mind, and like I didn't actually prepare anything, and then last minute we'll have to scramble for things and so on and so forth. So somewhere that's at the back of my mind saying, yeah, it could happen. I don't control the universe. It's not obligated to me in any way, right? But then so many things go well. Again, I didn't forget. So yet so much so goes so well, and I'm grateful for it. So From uncertainty, there is no place to hide. If to catastrophic scenes my mind does guide, say no, the future may have another side. Maybe great things this event will provide. So, this is about that dealing with uncertainty solution, which is basically that limit your downside and prepare for max upside. Like, for example, just now at work, we have this campaign that supposed to work, but then it's not working because whoever we are running the campaign through is screwing up in some way. And that uncertainty was trying to overwhelm my unconscious and create anxiety for me. So I started using this framework on it and saying, okay, you know what, it's uncertainty, but it does not mean catastrophe. It could also mean that we will innovate and develop a new way of marketing that is much stronger than depending on these guys for this campaign. Maybe that could happen. So the future may have another side. Many great things this maybe great things this event will provide, right? At the same time, I cap the downside. I'm not so callous that I don't cap the downside. I say, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen and how do we prevent that from happening? So again, the point is, read through each paragraph, think about it in the context of the day. I do this at least once in the morning and at least once in the evening properly. Through the rest of the day, I have many alarms that ring, and I'm not able to do it in the middle of the day. But I try to keep it on top of my mind so that when the events occur, this thought process is not very far away. It's there to aid me, and this is the transformation of my subconscious that happens through this process, thus helping me be liberated and keep these ideas, or let's say 80% liberated. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation, and in the end, I've added my own modern technique to this whole thing. The original Buddha technique is things like Vipassana and all, where you just sit there and mindfully observe your mind, and maybe that works really well. But this works for me, and I've been doing it for some time now, and I've seen a big improvement. So. Try it out and let me know if you want the wallpaper. Bye.